Welcome learners. In this session, I'm going to finally reveal the secret and help you understand how that NoSQL storage can be absolute blissful. That's because introduction to the NoSQL was been completed. But the query generation, automatic code generation, and also to do the creation of the database, we're going to cover in much more details. This module, or in fact, this entire session is going to be very informative, not just to Flutter perspective, but in general to software engineering, wherein developers can increase their efficiency of work by using certain automation tools. The first automation tool which I'm trying to introduce to you is going to be on NoSQL. However, in the next module, I'm going to teach to you few more things like how you can automate even creating your models for your data classes. Now, in order to get the automation thing done in the right way, stay tuned and keep learning with the Hoping Mind session. Let us begin the implementation by adding all the plugins for my NoSQL storage. Heading over to the pubsec YAML file, I want to have your attention towards this ISAR plugin, wherein this ISAR is going to be accompanied by ISAR Flutter libs. Well, let's say you're trying to have the NoSQL storage on different processors. Coming to the mobile environment, there can be processors like Snapdragon, Qualcomm, and even Apple Ionic, or in fact Bionic. In that case, what you have is ISAR Flutter libs that creates a NoSQL database according to the processor type. Isn't that beautiful that it already has got the entire code which can make the app smoother when you're trying to download it on different processor environments. If you are by any chance a Mac user, when you're trying to download any software, you're going to find two variants of it. One, Mac with an Intel chip. Another one, Mac with an M1, M2 or even an M3 chip. In that case, what things the software does when it is optimized on the Apple silicon chip is, according to the processor, it will behave, and that kind of gives a smoother experience to the user. In that case, what we have the ISAR Flutter libs doing the same, but instead of only for Apple, it does for any mobile processor. Following which, this is the build runner code. This is going to be an absolute blissful thing that you would be seeing. It's going to help you automate. Now, what automation I'm talking about? Just look at my comment generator for ISAR queries. What we are going to try and do is just mention the table structure and what will be the schema. For example, let's go inside the code directory and have a new directory as tables, of which I'll be having a to-do model dart file. So class to-do model is going to have 4 variables. Now let me mark this as collection. Did you notice the import for ISAR came in? Next, I'm going to do to-do model dot generator dot dart. Well, this is something called as part files, and I'm going to make you understand with the help of queries, or in fact commands. Let's come on to my ISAR, or in fact my ID, wherein I'll have my task ID, in which I'll make it as auto increment. I highly recommend going through the past videos in which we have done SQLite in much more details. For example, if this task ID is set to auto increment, and if I try to insert multiple tasks into my database, they would be having unique IDs every time. Following which, I'll have the task description, the duration in which my user wants to do that task, and of course the priority value. With all these four variables, I'm going to create my constructor, and I'll be wanting all of them to be required. Which basically sees that all the other variables which were having a red underline have gone, except for this guy. Well, what's a part file? What I'm going to next to do is go down to the terminal and run one particular command: flutter pub run build underscore runner build minus minus delete conflicting outputs. The moment I run, you're going to see a bit amount of magic to happen. I'm going to wait until this command shows me either a failure or a success. And it shows me a success message, and I want your attention to be on this line. Did the error go away? When I open this file, on the very first line, it in bold text says, and in capital text it shouts at you, generated code, do not modify by hand. And that's exactly what I was talking about, automatic code generation. So welcome to the part of the Flutter wherein from here onwards I'm going to teach to you how to get work done quicker, but with the help of code that will be getting auto generated. I'm not going to be unlike those YouTubers wherein you have AI to do the part of your work. Well, that's extreme speed. I want you to slightly slow down so that you can catch up according to human mind. Wait, what is in there in this entire generator code? This has all the code in order to do an insert operation, an update, or let's say a read operation, a write operation, a delete operation, and we will be using this generated code into our app. What I'm going to next do is, inside the tables, create something called as a to-do manager. Now, all the aspects of my NoSQL database, for example, create, update, read, and delete, shall happen from this particular file only. So here's my to-do manager. Basically, the name abbreviates the purpose of it being managing the entire NoSQL database. So here I'm going to write down 4 different functions. First is initializing the database. Now, this step 1 will also create the database for first time. And if it exists, then absolutely no issue, because we can reuse it. Next, over here, what I'm going to try and do is insert a task. Now, just few minutes ago, we created this to-do model. I'll put this over here. In fact, let me just add task to save and have this inside curly braces. Let me mark this as async and this to be required. So what I'm going to do is insert one particular task into my table. Now, when it comes to having a table, if you would remember, I was using my ISAR plugin. So here's my ISAR plugin object. I put a question mark. That's because when the app is loaded, this ISAR object is going to be uninitialized, which means it would be null. This is probably going to have the entire logger part. Since I created a logger, I would be having my tag. Now, what we're going to try and do is create the database at a local storage. Did you remember something from the camera module? Wait. You can test your memories if you do remember this particular function, get application documents directory, which basically means in the PubSec YAML, I have this path provider. So the database, exactly like in camera module, gets created into an internal storage which is accessible only to my app. This kind of safeguards my database from being accessible to the other applications which are there on my phone. Hence, over here, what I'm going to next do is ISAR equal to in fact, let me try doing as await ISAR dot open. Now, do you notice it is asking me all the tables or all the schemas that I would be having? Presently, I just got one. Following which, it is asking me in which directory should I create. So I'll say over here directory dot path, which basically means some kind of an internal storage. Following which, I'll use dot then and then do you notice this underscore ISAR? Well, this is going to be initialized once the schema is ready. Next, what I'll try and do is insert a task. So for now, what I'll try and do is here, I'll write an if condition. If my ISAR is equals to null, then I would be initializing with get instance. Next, what I'll try and do, insert data, but this time I'm not going to write a query. Well, what is it that I'm going to try and do? There's something called as write transaction. Let me just show you the beauty of NoSQL. Let me put a question mark here and after the question mark, I'm going to use this await keyword. Wait, if I'm using an await, I have to make this as async. and then I have to just try to use my schema, that is to do models, and then I can write this put task to save. Well, do you see this is even, or in fact, do you interpret that's actually an insert statement? Well, yes. In fact, over here, let me show it to you by printing the row ID that shall be inserted. Row ID inserted. What I'm going to next do is use this init database right onto my main function. Let me put this as step 2. Insert a task that user wants to save. Now, heading over to the main.dart file, I am going to write an init function. Well, what is this init function going to do? This is my to-do manager. Now, do you guys agree that inside the to-do manager, I have the init database function? So let's say I'll put over here init database. So what will happen? I will be having the initialization to be done, that too in the main function, and this time before I would run my entire app. So basically what I'm trying to do, the moment the app will get into the entry point, that's my main function. First it's going to create the database and then it will show me my entire app. Now what exactly goes behind creating the database, and let's see whether we are even able to do it or not. Here I am killing my app. Next, what I'll try and do is run the app and check if I get a unique URL, that's something which I can open on Chrome and view my entire database. If that seems a bit confusing, I would want you to wait until I get an APK file to get installed into my device. Now, as you notice, there is this APK. I would want it to show me something of the ISR. And well, it now says that the instance binding has not been initialized. Wait, let's try doing it. Widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialized, and let me run my app once again. The ensure initialized ensures that once the app is entirely ready, then only the initialization for the database is done. But wait, I was talking about a URL. Hovering up, do you notice? Open the link to connect to the ISR while the build is running. Let me open this and see what do I get. To-do model. Is this the thing that we were trying to do all this time? And yes, this is my table. In fact, let me prove it to you. In order to do testing, what I'm going to next do is move to the add task screen, and for now I'll just comment this entire validation part. Let me create the object for my to-do manager. Now, it's a good practice. I should be having this as private. Next, what I'll try and do, make this button press function to be async. Then with my await keyword, I am going to go to my to-do manager and insert one particular task. For now, I am going to have task to save as to-do model, and here I will be adding one particular task to be hard coded. This is again purely for testing. So check this thing out. When it comes to the SQL, we first created the database, and I was able to demonstrate to you that the database is created. So the create operation is already complete. Well, the NoSQL storage comes with an additional functionality where I can see the table. Hence, in order to do just a bit amount of practice, I am going to have this task description. Let's say preparing food. (8:15 p.m.) Priority value 1. And then I'll try to insert this into my database. Upon hot reload, I'll click on the plus symbol, then click on add task. Did you notice row ID inserted 1? Did you notice I did not write even a single SQL query, insert into table, etc., etc. Nothing been there. All auto generated. In fact, now on the Chrome window, you can see the thing that we inserted. This serves as an database inspector which comes inbuilt with the ISAR plugin. It kind of helps in order to understand whether we have any data been there into the app. Absolutely blissful. Talking about how the insert happened, let me now control click on this dot put. Wait, we never wrote this. In fact, to-do models, this entire collection along with the script, we never wrote this. How did entirely this thing happen? Wait, that's my beauty for the ISA generator plugin, which wrote the queries for create, insert, update and delete. Hopefully the entire demonstration went well, wherein we were able to create the NoSQL storage as well as we were able to understand how you can have the entire initialization to be done. Probably you would notice the entire documents directory to get repeated, which means our NoSQL storage is secure. It's kind of embedded inside the application and nobody else can find it out, not even the other apps that are there in the mobile. In this way, more upon further, I'm going to teach to you how secure practices can help you being a good developer, especially in this vicious world. Happy coding!